Joker is one of those characters who is so iconic and has been reimagined so many times because he is a symbol of a part of the human psyche we sometimes forget to examine. I was very excited for this new version of the Joker, one that, I hoped, would take a complex look at angry, resentful young men who exist in our society, and how someone can become completely engulfed in darkness. Somehow this movie became political, and it shouldn't be. One side fears dark stories being told and fears the consequences that can occur in the real world. And the other side is saying that fearing this Joker film is stupid and that this movie represents some sort of important message. And I think both of these ideas are incorrect. In this video, I want to talk about the purpose of well-done dark stories, why we need them, and why this film misses the mark. Also, this will be full of spoilers from beginning to end. This video is hopefully geared to help writers write, and not just a review on whether or not you should see it. Let's begin. When examining this film, it's important to remember the purpose of stories and the purpose of the Joker through time. Why are stories important in a culture? Are they just there so that we can have somewhere to spend 2 hours on a Friday night? Stories have a much more important role not only in our culture, but in all of human history across time. Dan Harmon is a name you'll certainly recognize if you've been following my YouTube channel, and he has an article where he talks about the human mind and why we need stories. The full article is linked below. Harmon says, "Your mind is a home with an upstairs and a downstairs. Upstairs, in your consciousness, things are well lit and regularly swept. Friends visit, Scrabble is played, hot cocoa is brewing. It's a pleasant, familiar place. Downstairs, it is older, darker, and much, much freakier. We call this basement the unconscious mind. The unconscious is exactly what it sounds like. It's the stuff you don't, won't, and or can't think about. Even though it contains life-sustaining energies like the fuse box and the water heater, it's a primitive, stinky, scary place, and it's no wonder that, given the choice, we won't hang out down there. However, your pleasure, your sanity, and even your life depend on occasional round trips. You've got to change the fuses, grab the Christmas ornaments, clean the litter box, to the extent that if we keep the basement door sealed, the entire home becomes unstable. The creatures downstairs get louder, and the guy upstairs, your ego, tries to cover the noise with neurotic behavior. For some, eventually, the basement door can come right off its hinges, and the slimy, primal denizens of the deep can become Scrabble partners. You might call this a nervous breakdown or psychotic break. It doesn't matter. The point is, occasional ventures by the ego into the unconscious through therapy, meditation, confession, sex, violence, or a good story keep the consciousness in working order. This is the purpose of stories. Stories allow us to travel into this unconscious part of ourselves because we are able to see characters act out different ideas and beliefs on screen, on the page, or simply told to us around a campfire. We are sent on a journey through this downstairs unconscious part of our mind, and then we come back up. Like Harmon says, there's a lot of darkness down there. There's a lot of stuff we'd rather not think about. The founder of analytical psychology, Carl Jung, said that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Carl Jung referred to the dark, unknown part of ourselves as the shadow. Our shadow is our hidden face. It's the basement, the unconscious, darker, or neglected parts of ourselves we don't like to think about. And Jung argued that the best way to live was to become aware of this darkness and try to assimilate and understand it as an element of who we are, rather than trying to push it away. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Dark stories can help us move through this unconscious, darker side of ourselves, and it can help us learn more about who we are.
Part of spiritual development is to recognize the satanic tendencies that characterize you and to fully wrestle with them and to integrate them. People who haven't integrated the shadow at all are naive, and you can tell that when you look at them, and you can tell that when you talk to them. And because they're naive, they're often resentful as well because they get taken advantage of.
Human beings are capable of unbelievable violence and other heinous acts, and acting like this side of people doesn't exist creates problems, because it becomes dangerous and uncontrolled. However, being aware of this nature and accepting it as an element of yourself can make you mentally stronger.
You say that you have to accept the fact that you're dangerous, or become dangerous, because I'd also say that if you haven't done that kind of shadow work, if you haven't made friends with your anger, if you haven't integrated it, you're actually more dangerous.
Yes, definitely.
Because then things will happen that it will come out in a way that you don't expect.
Right, it comes out disintegrated. So it comes out as an autonomous spirit, right, under no one's control, and that's like a burst of rage, let's say.
Throughout time, the Joker has been many things. Joker symbolizes chaos, anger, insanity, nihilism, and what can happen when a person completely breaks. Essentially, the Joker has been an embodiment of our collective shadow. When we look at the two most recent iterations of the Joker put on the screen, we see a Joker who is challenging society as a whole. In The Dark Knight, we see Joker as a philosopher. He is pushing a particular ideology, and the people of Gotham don't follow him. His goal is to bring out the shadow in the people of Gotham and show them just how weak their personal morality is.
I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
The Joker we see in The Dark Knight is a force of nature. He's an agent of chaos. We aren't dealing with his past, like a mother or a bad relationship. He's a ghost. He has no past.
What do we got? Nothing. No matches on prints, DNA, dental, clothing is custom, no labels. Nothing in his pockets but knives and lint. No name. No other alias.
So we are only looking at his worldview.
See, their morals, their code. It's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be.
He is trying to prove these ideas for the entire film. That's all he's doing, proving that people are monsters deep down. And he's able to take down Harvey Dent, but he can't sway the general population of Gotham. The Dark Knight shows us Joker versus the people. Joker does his best to bring out the darkness in the people and fails. He cracks the mask with Harvey Dent, but Batman and Gordon continue to lie so that Joker cannot free the city's prisoners and harm the symbol of Gotham's morality. But in Joker, it's not this way. In this new film, Joker is an accidental cultural icon. He isn't pushing an ideology, yet the people rally behind him. People rally because they are angry and resentful just like him. In Joker, we see Joker and the people versus the rich and powerful. Joker explicitly says he isn't trying to be a political or ideological figure like the Joker in The Dark Knight. While in The Dark Knight, Joker is an open philosopher with a specific set of beliefs, this Joker is an accidental cultural icon. He's simply an angry, hurt person, and the rest of Gotham responds to this and rallies behind him. What I think this film wanted to do is, rather than have Joker be this force of nature coming in from the outside, this Joker is created by the system he is fighting against. However, the way that this Joker is built isn't actually that interesting. The movie we end up watching isn't that deep. It fails to really get into any of these ideas about morality or what culture believes or what belief systems and emotional traumas can create resentful, violent people. It doesn't really get into what society believes or how society treats people at the bottom or how someone becomes a mass shooter. This film is too simplistic and doesn't really say anything. This film is not a masterpiece, and it isn't deeply informative on culture. All we see happen in this film is a man with a pre-existing mental illness who starts shooting people he doesn't like. That's it. No beliefs, and no look into what makes regular men become angry, resentful killers. There's no nuanced look at some of the ostracized men in current society. And it's not even a compelling origin for a beloved comic book character. But the real failure is in the writing, in the scene construction, and in the dialogue. There are interesting ideas around this film, but they are executed poorly. We watched Joker get beaten up 3 times for consistently stupid, unbelievable reasons. I just couldn't really get behind a lot of this film because I couldn't believe this story. I wasn't feeling this character's struggles because they felt so forced. Some of the scenes flat out didn't make any sense to me at all, like Joker being able to just walk up to Wayne Manor and touch Bruce Wayne, or the very poorly written scene where Joker speaks to Thomas Wayne and gets punched in the bathroom. Also, I think the relationship regarding Joker and women would have been more interesting than the mother-son relationship. I think more anger in men comes from the rejection from women and the resentment that comes from that, rather than the mother relationship. It could have been one of the avenues that this film went down if it really wanted to take a stance in the cultural conversation. A Joker origin story is interesting. Talking about incels and people who have been ostracized by current society is interesting and worth making movies about. This was just a lot of hard things to believe, weird lapses in logical causes and effects, and honestly just sloppy storytelling. The cultural conversation surrounding this film has also turned to some of the men who have become shooters. And so I do want to touch on this sensitive topic for a moment. Some are saying that this film glorifies this type of behavior, and while I don't believe this was the film's intention, I think there's some legitimacy to this idea. In Joker, we watch a mentally ill man act on his violent impulses and then be glorified for it. There's no nuance, no downside, no complexity. What is this film saying to those who are angry and resentful? That if they act on their impulses, they will be worshipped by society? I'm not against characters like this, I just think the way this film handled these ideas was sloppy and unfocused. But regardless of whether or not the message is dangerous, I don't think it's saying anything interesting. And I think some of this has to do with the accidental element of Joker's rise to the forefront. I think it's much more compelling if Joker knows exactly what he's doing and why. In this movie, he's just a violent, hurt lunatic. But what if Joker had specific reasons for harming the people he harmed, not simply, you were mean to me? If we take a look at some of these men who have become shooters, many of them had very specific reasons for doing what they were doing. Some of these men had manifestos. Their beliefs motivated their murders. They believed they had been wronged by society and decided to fight against it. It wasn't on accident, and many of them weren't necessarily mentally ill, just deeply neurotic, resentful, and suppressed. And I think it would be interesting to construct a film that takes a look at those beliefs that these angry, resentful people have had and try to create a counter-argument or more nuance for why these men ended up where they did. In The Dark Knight, we see a very intelligent man with a full set of chaotic dark beliefs who imposes his will upon the city in the fight for its moral soul. In this film, a man with mental illness gets a pistol and shoots people. There's no nuance, and there's nothing really to take away and think about. A lot of the time, movies fail to be compelling because they have well-written scenes but have nothing to say. This film has the opposite problem. It has everything to say, yet the actual causes and effects, the flow from scene to scene, the dialogue, and the action all felt wrong and didn't work for the story. Joaquin Phoenix is excellent. I never doubted that he would give everything to this performance. If there's one thing we can all agree on, it's Joaquin Phoenix's mastery of acting and dedication to this character. And it's sad, because great acting cannot save a poorly written story. Actors can only work within the confines of the story that they have been given. Perfectly delivering the wrong line is still delivering the wrong line. When I walked into the theater to watch Joker, I noticed that there were 5 police officers standing outside. I don't know if you heard, but here in the US, security has been increased nationwide at theaters that are showing Joker. As I walked in and saw this extra security, it honestly made me happy. That may sound morbid, so let me explain. To me, these police officers were a physical symbol of the power of movies and storytelling. They were a reminder that what we see on screen can have an impact on us. It can impact how we see ourselves and how we see the world. The purpose of stories is to give us a way to experience who we are, what we believe, and what we are capable of. I believe dark stories that are hard to handle are necessary to build a functioning society. Dan Harmon says, societies are basically macrocosms of people, only instead of consciousness, a society's upstairs is order and its basement is chaos. Whereas the health of an individual depends on the ego's regular descent and return to and from the unconscious, a society's longevity depends on actual people journeying into the unknown and returning with ideas. Like people, societies become neurotic and can eventually break down when they make the mistake of thinking the downstairs shouldn't exist. So what really lurks in the downstairs of our current culture? What's down there that we don't want to deal with? What would make us increase security at theaters nationwide for a comic book movie? I believe that examining people who have become angry and resentful is important and helps us find a better path forward. We need dark films. They help us remember the parts of who we are that we'd like to forget. I'm glad this film exists, but I'm not going to act like it's good. It's not bad in the sense of what it's trying to talk about. It's not bad in the sense that it's different from previous Joker iterations. And it's not bad because of Joaquin Phoenix. All of those things are good. It's bad because it's simply bad writing. It's full of bad scenes, bad dialogue, characters that don't quite work, and potential plot lines that aren't fully explored. Stories are the place to examine these hard things. We should make films about hard topics, but we shouldn't tolerate bad writing when we do talk about these topics. I think it's important to make dark films, but these types of films must be made in the correct way. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like this video, please subscribe and check out the Guide to Screenwriting playlist on the screen now if you want to see more of my videos teaching screenwriting. And if you're ready to move away from story theory that you've heard over and over and over again and prefer to focus on the most practical elements of screenwriting, then I suggest you head over to practicalscreenwriting.com and check out the Practical Screenwriting course. Use code YouTube for $50 off. Also, there's some more videos and articles linked below that deal with the topics I covered in this video today. So if you want to do some more reading on that, they're all linked below. And as always, thanks for watching.